How much should I pay for a sales rep? It's really easy, nothing. Don't pay them anything at all, unless they close business at your price with no discounts to your target customer profile on your technology stack. Don't let them go out there and go off the reservation and sell something else. You know, don't let them, if you're a Mercedes dealership, don't let them sell BMWs. They need to sell Mercedes. So again, my favorite move, who knows the Glengarry Glen Ross, right? You know, always be closing. Sales reps, hunters are animals. You know them when you meet them. And they will always want to be closing, and they're awful at follow-up. So you want to make sure that you're, that you have true hunters in the organization itself. This is not something that I'm recommending, I'm just giving you data here. So service leadership just redid their salary survey. Maybe some of you filled it out. It's 320 pages. And out of that salary survey, experienced sales reps came in 1 to 3 years, they made $46,000. If they had 4 to 7 years experience, generally with the same company, you know, not 4 years with 4 separate companies. That's not 4 years experience. Paid them 102, and really good reps, somewhere around 155. You know, I know some companies that, if that one top performing company I was talking about, a rep who did $10,000 a month probably made about $180,000 a year.
Is that base pay or base pay plus commission?
Hold that thought and see if you have to ask that after these slides are done. So how much should salary be, and how much should commission and bonus be? It should be commensurate with your business model. Base pay should be enough to cover their basic needs. You know, if they have a problem, especially if they're new sales reps, if they need new tires on their car, they're going to have a problem trying to figure out how to get the tires, right? They're going to have to sell to get the tires. They need enough to put milk and eggs in the refrigerator and pay their mortgage. Closing business should be really important to them, to take the economic pressure off of that sales rep. Salary should not be at a level to make that rep comfortable. Base pay should be no more than 50% of, so I'll start using a term called TAE, which is targeted annual earnings. So target annual earnings is made up of base pay and some type of bonus or commission. So sales reps should be no greater than 50% salary. A larger base may be accommodated with commensurate increase in quota. We'll get into that in a minute, and I have some good examples on that. And you may consider a draw for somebody that you think is a superstar. Does everybody know what a draw is? All right, no? All right, so let's say that your normal salary that you want to pay a sales rep is, their TAE is going to be $100 grand. You're going to pay them $50,000, but they really need another $2,000 a month just to get started until they start getting accounts. You would pay them that $2,000 a month for 3 months, 6 months, and it could be unrecoverable, means that you're not going to claw it back, or it could be recoverable, or it could be a combination of recoverable and non-recoverable, just to get that sales rep on their feet and get them going. What should the commission be based on? Should you base it on revenue dollars, on margin dollars? Should you base it on servers and firewalls, or should you base it on service and labor? What you really want to do is you want to pay based upon the gross margin dollars produced, not the gross revenue dollars produced. So most of what I'm going to be talking about going forward is about gross margin. You do not want to put the rep in a position of what your aspirational margin is. So meaning that if your service gross margin is 35% and best in class is 50%, you don't want to pay them at your aspirational margin of 50% because you're going to lose money. At the same time, you don't want to put them in a position where there's variable margin on the deal, meaning I'm going to pay you on the margin that comes out of this deal, so to speak. When we're done onboarding, we're going to take a look at the margin and then I'm going to pay you for that. That's not fair to the rep either because most companies lose money on projects going forward. I said another key is do not have hunters sell projects. How many people will sell projects to customers that have no MRR, no recurring revenue with them? So the 3 or 4 of you should talk to the rest of the people in this room. It's not a good practice. And you shouldn't have hunters selling those because those are easy deals going forward. Selling assessments. How many in here sell assessments? So that is highly mature, selling assessments. Most business owners, as business owners, we have the gravitas to talk to other business owners. We have the gravitas to be able to commit our company and bind our company to certain T's and C's. If we bring in a sales rep off the street, they generally do not have that capability. And they're generally used to selling a product and not a service. And what we've found is that the best-in-class companies that have great sales forces start their salespeople off with selling an assessment. And that assessment is a full-blown assessment on the capability or on the structure of the network. It's a blueprint going forward that the company can take to any other MSP or MSSP out there. And so they'll let the sales reps sell the assessments. The company will go in and do the assessment. Then they may be able to sell the MRR, and the sales rep will get the MRR from that assessment as well. Excuse me. Your highest incentive should be for your full meal deal. Your sales reps should be selling your full-priced offering, we'll get into that in a little bit, on your full package, on your tech stack. Hunters should not sell projects. Your onboarding project and tech team should be the ones who determine, during the onboarding, they should determine what projects need to get done and what priority of those projects need to get done. And then the account rep takes care of that going forward with a delivered roadmap and a budget to the client. Consider paying commissions on project margin closed in the first 30 to 60 days. So a rep may be, oh, geez, they definitely need this $100,000 project. And the message to the rep should be, the client thinks they need it, you think they need it, we don't know technically whether they need it or not until we've done an assessment of their network and seen, number one, do we have to do other things when we go in there to reduce their risk? Do we have to do other things when we go in there to get them on our tech stack? And do we have to do other things to help them grow? So what are the measurement and payout intervals? From our favorite movie, sales is a numbers game. You want to measure until the salespeople have proven that they can hit their quota, you want to measure activity until the individual is consistently at quota. I mean, you really need to watch them like a hawk. You want to know the number of phone calls they make a day, the number of emails, how many drop-ins they've made, how many proposals they've made. In the olden days of selling telecom, when we had 20 sales reps per office, they had to go out and bring in 20 business cards or letterheads to show that they'd knocked on the door. They would have to come back and check out with those items. So they had to prove their activity going forward. And the best companies, as they bring in new sales reps, even very seasoned reps, they'll watch their activity until the business starts coming in. In your budgets, in your annual budgets, you want to include 100% of their target annual earnings in your budget itself, because you need to make sure that you've set a budget that's realistic and that they can close on. And you want to pay as close to the close as possible, because it helps incentivize behavior. And we'll talk a minute about that. But make sure that you're covering their salary as you are paying out bonuses and commissions. Meaning, you really shouldn't keep a sales rep for 9 months who hasn't closed anything, because at the end of the day, if you're paying them $50,000 a year, so in 9 months you've paid them what, $38,000, and they haven't sold anything, they need to at least cover that amount of money that you've paid them with selling something in some margin. So don't get into that position.
What do you think is a fair number of phone calls for a hunter? I mean, emails, phone calls. I've heard some people say, 200 a day, and you got to factor in how many meetings that they have. I mean, what's a real number? Because my rep
So,
bitch and say the number's too high.
yeah, Robin's numbers for BDRs are dead on. I mean, it's what I've seen for 40 years. So if I have a new sales rep who needs to gen up his own leads, her own leads, do marketing, I was always using a minimum acceptable performance system where I had points quotas, and ConnectWise and Autotask allow you to do this, where I had point quotas for those reps. So a phone call was 1 point, and sending out a proposal was 20 points, and I had other going on first-time appointments was 20 points. So realistically, I think sales reps need to make 20 calls a day, 100 calls a week. Doing that, they're going to get 1 first-time appointment. You want them to have at least 1 first-time appointment, if not 2, every week. And certainly by the end of month 2 coming in, they should have sent out 2 proposals. So, just work that activity. So the rest of what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about a top-down approach and a bottom-up approach. The top-down approach is really to get you all used to your numbers in your income statement and what percentage the company should pay out for sales and marketing. And then we'll talk about how to pay out from the bottom up. But I want you to think about this from an income statement perspective. So what can I afford to pay a sales rep from a top-down approach? These are the metrics of the top performers best in class. So where I get these numbers from, this is, service leadership is the largest financial benchmarker in the world of solution providers for the past 20 years. Every quarter, somewhere between 1,000 and 5,000 solution providers put their numbers into their benchmarking system. From that, has developed this term best in class. And best in class is a very direct number. That is EBITDA. So we look at those top 25% of the performers and what their EBITDA is, period. End of story. And then all the other numbers are generated off of that. We'll look at that group of 25% and say, what are their product margins? And what are their service gross margins? And what are they spending for SG&A? And what they are spending on other metrics. And I see a gentleman in this room who asked me about these numbers not adding up, and I didn't have time to explain it, and I apologize. But that's why these numbers don't add up, because we take a look at what is the top, what is the EBIT of the top 20%, and then we look at that 20%, what are their service gross margins, what are their overall gross margins, what are their product gross margins. So these are the numbers that we look at as being a top performing MSP. So if we come over and we say, all right, our overall gross margin as a percentage of revenue is 40%, and the SG&A expenses. So this is top performers. Sales and marketing, the top performers are spending 5.7% on sales and marketing expenses of their revenue. It's easier, that revenue is easier to look at than gross margin, but they spend 13.6% of their gross margin dollars on sales and marketing. Sales compensation, 5.7% of revenue and 10.4% of gross margin. So the best in class, and this moves around, has sales, general, and admin costs somewhere between 24 and 28% on a monthly basis. So here, from a very 10,000-foot view, we see how much money we have to spend on sales and marketing. And if you're spending time in sales, you should prorate whatever time you have in sales in there. So the economics of compensation are, if I'm a best-in-class $3 million MSP, I'm probably have about $139,000 to spend on sales, all my sales. The amount of time I put in there, what my rep puts in there, et cetera. Marketing in general and admin, I have, how do those numbers come up? That is the remainder that I have. So if I'm going to have an overall net income of 18% or $529,000. If I'm an average MSP, I'm going to make and say I want to increase my sales and marketing. If I'm only making 35% gross margin, which is what the average MSP makes, not 42% gross margin, and I want to add a little bit more juice to my sales and marketing, I may have up to $157,000 to pay. Now, in one of the other sessions I was in, somebody said, well, what if I want to pay more? What if I really want to invest in sales and marketing? Well, look at it as an investment, as any other investment. You know, when every dime that you put back into your company, you're growing your value creation by over 20% every year. So you want to make sure that you're going to be getting that return. And so watch that investment like a hawk going forward. So in this case, that average $3 million MSP, instead of making $529,000, will make about half of that of $262,000. The top performing MSPs have higher gross margins and actually pay their sales department less of their gross margin. One is because they have higher gross margins. Number two is because they've refined their technology stack perfectly, and the sales reps understand exactly what the target customer profile is, and they're not wasting their time on people who will not buy from them going forward. How much time do I have? 12 minutes, all right. So I'll go through this pretty quick. Top performers. This is a number that Robin shared the other day. $1 of sales payroll to every $9 of gross margin expense. The average has $1 to every $7 of sales expense. So from looking at it in a way, we want the sales reps to, if the rep makes $100,000, you want them to bring in $900,000 in gross margin. So if you use the rule of 74 and go out 60 months and take a look at a sales rep who puts on $5,500 a month for 36 months, they will generate $900,000 of gross margin. So, how does that work?
When you say pay, do you mean salary plus commission?
Yes, salary, TAE, salary plus commission. So, looking at the bottom-up approach, one way to look at it is all gross margin dollars are applied to the target annual earnings. Annual compensation, the general rule is that the annual compensation should be no more than 33% of the gross margin pool of dollars that you get from the company. So take a look at what the deal was. So here's an example. Let's say a rep comes in and they say, I need to make $100,000 a year, but you're going to pay them a salary of $48,000. You may give them some type of draw to start with. A $48,000 annual salary means that they should have a quota commensurate with the salary, somewhere between $4,000 and $5,000 a month. That's the business that they should bring in. That generates $156,000 of annual margin and $700,000 of 3-year margin. So looking at that annual margin, that would generate, if they had a $6,000 quota and did $60,000 a month, commensurately that generates $215,000 of annual margin, et cetera. So pay the salary up front and an additional 33% if they've had some type of quarterly overage. I'm going to make this a little bit easier here. Looking at the MRR approach, this is the classic approach. Again, salary requirements will reflect monthly quota. Salary is considered a draw by the company. Again, you don't want to keep somebody around that's not going to pay for themselves. They might have a 3 to 6 months startup period, and the MRR is, in your mind, applied against the salary, but pay them 1 month's MRR going forward. And any overage would be paid out in a bonus at the end of the year or the end of the period if they're over 100%. So the easy button. This is the way that I see the best performers doing this. This actually comes, this plan's probably 50 years old. Salary requirements will reflect monthly quota. If somebody has a $50,000 salary, it means they have to do $5,000 a month in MRR. $5,000 in MRR is $60,000 annually. $60,000 annually, if you're running for each of those accounts, if you multiply that by 12 for each month, you're generating $720K in total revenue, or at 50% service margin, you're generating $360,000 of service margin. A third of that service margin of 360 is 120. That's the max that you want to pay out. So this rep has brought you $360,000 worth of margin, and you're going to pay out a third of that to the rep. Now, the business is going to stay with you for more than 12 months, right? Generally, when we run these actuarial-like tables, we see that most MSPs keep their customers for somewhere between 4 and 5 years. And you want to have the accelerators and decelerators for if they're making their number 1 month and if they're not. And consider your payment stream. You do want to compensate people as close to the deal as possible. I see a lot of people paying somewhere between 20 and 50% when the deal is signed and it goes into onboarding. And then after the client pays the first month bill, they're paid the remainder of the commission. Pretty easy plan, right? Yes, sir.
So do you factor the margin based on 12 months?
Yes.
So if I signed a $5,000 a month deal at $60,000, so figure the margin, I'm looking at that, because we signed a 4-year deal.
Well, so even though you sign 4-year deals, just look at it on an annual basis, right? So that is your product. That's what I'm talking about. That's your full price, full product. If they don't sell a 4-year deal, then you should deaccelerate the commission, right? If they come back to you and say they'll only do it for 2 years, and you say, well, I'm only going to give you 50% of the commission. But we're figuring out what the company gets from our margin on an annual basis. And we're saying,
You have the margin pay based on what the margin is for the first 12 months, and that's how the
On the first 12 months. Right? But they don't even have to know that, right? You know, if you tell them that, then they're just going to start arguing with you about it. Well, it's a 4-year deal. You're just going to say, this is how I'm paying you. I'm paying you $50,000 a year annual salary, and I'm going to pay you 1 times MRR every month for bringing in 12 deals. And if not, you get.
All the telecoms around us, AT&T is a big guy. That's the way they.
Yeah, it's simple. It works. The margins in that business are very, very similar. You know, again, they shouldn't be selling hardware. They shouldn't be selling projects. That's not their job. You know, it's your project team and onboarding team to decide that and to prioritize that, and it's your account manager's job to take care of that.
Should we pay them a commission on hardware or no commission on hardware?
No. We will have something on account management coming up. The thing that Robin mentioned yesterday about having something in, what the heck? Yeah, sorry about this. I hate that. So I'm just going to, caveats here are hunters sell only assessments or MRR. You may incentivize on the project margin that comes in from the onboarding. Most commissions are paid after the customer paid. Don't set margins, whether services margins or blended margins, on actual or aspirational. Pay only for your full price, full meal deals. Sell only 3+ year or more deals. So I love 4-year deals, I love 5-year deals. Do not mix hunter and farmer roles. Additional thoughts, I didn't have any. A couple slides I wanted to show you that are pretty common errors that are made. Knowing the difference between, how many people in here know the difference between markup and margin? Right, this is a really important mathematical equation. So if you mark up, if you think you're making 20% margin and you mark it up by 20%, it's only 17% margin, because the margin formula is the selling price less the, the selling price, there's your profit is on top and your product cost is on the bottom. So make sure that you're making margin in that markup. Secondly, another really big thing is the impact of discounting on service gross margin. If you have a service gross margin, let's say that you have a mid-tier service gross margin of 40%, and you've discounted that deal 5%, you've lost 13% of your gross margin dollars. So discounting is kind of the kiss of death. A better slide to look at, this one, is the impact of increasing prices. Yeah, so as you increase prices, if you have 50% gross margin and you increase your revenue by 5%, you've just increased your gross margin dollars by double. So really important to take a look at that. Told you I had a bunch of different takeaway slides. Know your metrics. It's important to know those as you set your costs and what you know what you want for profit and compute your investment and spend against that. Our $3 million MSP has between $139,000 and $157,000 in total to spend. We know that they can hire a rep for $50,000 and pay that rep $100,000 to $110,000 a year at quota. Pay no more than 1/3 of the total annual earnings of the annual margin generated from that account. Discount commission for company-provided leads. So this is key. I talked about this before. You want your hunters to get their own leads. But if you have a lead-generating machine and you're giving hunters leads, number one, leads are for closers. You don't get the Glengarry leads if you haven't proved that you can close deals. Number two is most companies will discount the commission by 25% if they're giving a customer-provided lead, whether it's a referral or something gen from marketing itself. Hunters are on short performance leads, and again, do not have hybrid hunters and farmers. And with that, I think I finally finished something on time. I'm getting to stop. So we have a couple questions. So yes, sir.
So by nature, I'm a closer. So I got 2 reps that work for me. I want to make sure they bring me in on it, because they can sure fuck it up if they don't. So all that being said, I thought I seen something in there about discounting owner participation. I tell them, I'm going to be more mad at you for not bringing me in until, the deal's gone, versus I'm not going to ding you on your commission if you bring me in the deal and don't make it happen. Are you saying you should?
No, I'm all for that, right?
Please repeat the question.
All right, so what he's asking is, one of the points that I had there was if the owner is involved in the deal, in closing the deal, discounting the commission that goes to the rep. I see the best performers doing that, but it takes them a while to get there. You want your reps to have as much ups as possible. I would certainly pay them full commission. I wouldn't have a problem with that, right? But certainly count your time in that sales expense and make sure that you're within that. Yes, sir.
Any tips for finding these hunters? Few and far between, I think.
Yeah, not. You
Please
have to
repeat
kiss
the
a lot of
question.
frogs.
Copy your
You have to kiss a lot of frogs.
Copy your sales guys, telecom sales guys, those are usually your best if you want a true hunter.
Yeah.
Copy your guys, especially if you're in the Northeast, they're ruthless.
Yes, sir.
Paul, quick, say you, a hunter salesman or woman sells a $20,000 MRR account January 1, but say March 1, that account goes from 20 to 10 due to financial constraints with the company, whatever it is. How do you compensate that if the MRR goes down throughout the first 12 months of that agreement?
Well,
Please
that I
repeat the
would have-
question.
All right, so the question is, I have a rep that sells $20,000 in January. I've comped that rep in January and February. The account goes away in March,
Or it goes down in half?
or goes down in March. Well, generally, I wouldn't do anything about it because it's your responsibility to make sure that you're enforcing your contracts with the customers. I would never bill somebody $20,000. Your bill should say foundational billing, $20,000. That's what we're going to bill you, period, every month. And we're not going to deduct that. For any additional employees, we charge X.
Say they went bankrupt and the company's gone. It is what it is, right?
Yeah.
We have to.
It's a
we
tough
have to
call.
end this, everybody.
But we got to wrap this up.
We gotta wrap it up. We're done.
Sorry. Well, hopefully everybody took something out of this. Right?